of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. We've got a bang-up show for you today. Ghislaine Maxwell was supposed to testify before the House Oversight Committee looking into Jeffrey Epstein. But as promised, she chose to remain silent. Now, normally, I would say everyone has the right to plead the Fifth, to invoke their rights under the Fifth Amendment. But I just gotta say, somebody like Ghislaine Maxwell, who's already in jail for child trafficking, they don't just plead the Fifth for no reason. A lot of people have suggested that Ghislaine Maxwell was getting special treatment from the Trump administration and that she made a deal. But let me tell you what, if she had made a deal, she would have had no problem testifying because there would have been nothing for her to incriminate herself for. No, I think there's something very different going on here. And I think that this is probably the best indication that we have that Todd Blanche and the Department of Justice did not give Ghislaine Maxwell some special treatment. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show, and then sit back, relax, and of course, grab your popcorn, because we're going to be right back after this. The rules of money are quite literally being rewritten right in front of your eyes. And those institutions that control the financial system are not waiting. They're not warning, and they are not wishing. They're acting. Right now, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. You see, they're preparing for something, but the question is, are you? And for nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver, because as that world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. So let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. And while everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are already positioned. They understand that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and download your free wealth protection kit today. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. The rules are changing. Make sure you're ready. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate you. And thank you for hanging out with us today. We do have a lot to talk about, as I said. It was a slow news weekend. I'll be the first to tell you that. But I also will be the first to tell you that I promise you, we are not going to talk about the Super Bowl. We are not going to talk about the Olympics, and we are not going to talk about Bad Bunny, because I could give two shits about any of those things. I don't personally think that they are very important at all. We are, however, going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because, of course, there is a lot going on there. Carla asks over on YouTube, did I spoil Lisa for her birthday? Yes, I spent the entire weekend with Lisa. We went out to dinner. I pampered her in bed, took care of her, and yes, I definitely did. Thank you, Carla. Also, wanted to say thank you to anybody who had donated on the website. You may or may not know I don't get notifications through the website. I just get a report a couple of times a month, and so I go through and I look through and I see donations coming through, and it's from people's real names, and so that's why I don't go thanking people, because I don't know if they want to be identified or not. But if you donated through redpill78news.com, your donation got through to me, and I really do appreciate it. Also, this show is brought to you today by our friends over at Rumble and the good people at Rumble Wallet. You guys, they can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or who you're allowed to support. Big banks and financial institutions have got total control. They know it and they use it. And that's why financial independence matters now more than ever. So introducing Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom, because with Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. And you can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin all in one place with no permission, no middlemen, and no cancel button. And when you want to support creators that you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip those creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. It is your wallet, permanently yours to protect for your future and your family. Because when the system fails, when financial institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Because Rumble Wallet is not about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, and true financial freedom. If you're watching on Rumble, you can see that QR code on screen. If you are watching anywhere else, you can head to wallet.rumble.com or just look for the Rumble Wallet in the App Store on your phone. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so our first story of the day, and I'm sorry I had to reboot everything right before I came in. It does also have to do with the same people who ostensibly were scheduled to question Ghislaine Maxwell today. That would be James Comer and the good folks at the House Oversight Committee. Another thing that they are looking into, as we have spoken about in the very recent past, is the finances of Ilhan Omar, because they are looking into her for ethics violations, or should I say potential ethics violations, no matter whether or not we believe Ilhan Omar has committed those ethics violations. No matter what we may have been able to dig up online or to prove to ourselves in our own minds, it hasn't yet been proven in a legal sort of way. So I just want to toe that line very carefully, because the last thing I need is a multi-millionaire like Ilhan Omar bringing a lawsuit against me or anybody else that I love. So let's take a look and see what James Comer has to say about it, because as everyone knows, it's not just Ilhan Omar who needs to be investigated. It's also her husband, or rather, I should say, one of her husbands, because she's got several. One of them, which likely was her brother. But here, James Comer was asked about that investigation into Ilhan Omar. Let's take a look.
Why are you targeting her when there is a Ilhan Omar, your committee investigation with Ilhan Omar, when there is a process in the House, if people have questions about their conduct, this would go through the Ethics Committee. Why is this?
And I've spoken, I'm glad you asked that question. I've spoken with the Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee has jurisdiction over members of Congress. The two businesses in question are owned by Ms. Omar's husband. So the Ethics Committee does not have jurisdiction over a spouse, only a member. So that's why we just asked, we would have questions. I don't think anyone would.
It would pertain to her overall finances, because that is listed on her financial disclosure report. Even though that's
we've run this by the Ethics Committee, and we think this is the appropriate route.
All right, so this is now happening. It's gone from simply talk and speculation to finally actually beginning to look into it. We need to do this. It needs to happen as soon as possible, because if I'm not mistaken, Ilhan Omar is going to be up for re-election before too long. And I, for one, would hate to see her end up remaining in her seat. I would also like to see a serious investigation into Ilhan Omar and her husband for their businesses, which cannot be directly tied to Ilhan Omar's activity in Congress, even if I think it's worth saying that those businesses never would have become as quote-unquote successful as they were if it were not for the fact that Ilhan Omar was in Congress. Now, I saw someone in the chat ask if there are any updates on the Clintons. The Clintons are still scheduled to testify, I believe, on the 26th and the 27th. Hillary is scheduled for the 26th. Bill is scheduled for the 27th. They have accepted the terms of the Oversight Committee, and even though they're complaining about it, there's really nothing else that they can do. They either show up or they are officially in contempt of Congress. So, you know, I mean, I guess what would you prefer? Would you prefer that the Clintons did not show up and then got arrested, or would you prefer that they show up and then either incriminate themselves or just plead the fifth over and over and over again? I don't know. I don't know really what I want, but I do know that I want the Clintons to be held to some measure of justice, because those people, if I had to choose anybody that I think is dirty in Washington, D.C., I think that they are directly among them. Okay, so let me see. All right. So moving on from that Ilhan Omar story, you may have seen, I believe it was, back in 2023, I think I first played this clip, but there was a sheriff in San Joaquin, California, and he held a news conference, and he was talking about the fact that they had discovered that illegally people were voting in their California community. Now, what they found were 41 sealed, completed mail-in ballots in the home of the Lodi City Council member Shakir Khan. There were a total of 71 registered voter registrations that were tied to his address alone, but not just his address, it was tied to his phone number and his email address. So what Khan would do is he would go into the local Pakistani immigrant community, and that would include elderly people, people maybe who were not planning on voting, people who were unfamiliar with the process of actually voting. He would then pressure them into registering to vote. He might even forge their signatures. He would most often end up filling out their ballots and then submitting fraudulent voter registrations in their name. As long as he had a body, he knew that he would have a ballot that he could then go ahead and cast for someone. Now, the sheriff in San Joaquin told reporters at that time that voting records revealed that it wasn't just this man who was also on the city council. They had also determined that people outside of the United States, people in Pakistan, so still directly connected to Shakir Khan, these people were actually allowed to vote in California elections. And this was revealed in the course of a live press conference in September of last year. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the Sheriff's Department said about people voting.
The way the voting system is structured, we see quite a few flaws. You're able to register even if and cast a vote if you don't live in the country, as evident of his brother in Pakistan. And I think we have some evidence of 2 or 3 other people out of the country that voted. Is that correct?
Yeah, approximately 2 or 3 other people out of the country, as well as people residing outside of the district.
Okay. The online voter registration system, it seems to be an honor system. Anybody can put information in there to register to vote. All you have to do is click a box and say that you're not lying, and then you'll get an email from the Secretary of State or something in the mail saying thank you for registering to vote, and there you are. Once you're on the voter rolls, anytime an election comes around, guess what? You get mailed a ballot, right? You get mailed something to vote. So we found that a little bit problematic.
Yeah, it's a huge problem that the election system in the United States of America is so insecure. You don't even have to be present in the United States. As a foreign national, you can go to the website of this county in California, in San Joaquin. You can register to vote online. You don't have to present any evidence that you're an American citizen. You don't have to present any evidence that you even live in the district. And then once you're all set up, that absentee ballot gets mailed out. Now, this is just one county in one of the largest states in America. So you can imagine when you expand this on a regional basis and then on a nationwide basis, just how often this practice is likely being used. It's very reminiscent of what we talked about before the 2020 election with the UOCAVA ballots, the uniformed overseas military ballots. These were ballots that you could also go on. It's a federal system, but you could just go on there. If you had a name, if you had somebody who was a body in the United States at one time, you could fill out a ballot and you could have it sent, and then you would be able to go ahead and vote in that person's name. Huge, huge problem. So it should not surprise you that it's not just in Pakistan that this is happening. In California, these open elections that they have allow for anybody to vote. Now, the other thing about it, one of the reasons that it is so necessary that the SAVE Act is pushed through committee and then voted on in the Senate, because it's already passed in the House, is because it is illegal in the state of California to ask for a photo ID to vote. And the ballot counting process, as all of you, I'm sure, remember, goes on in California for weeks. Long after Election Day, it really is just a process of continuing the count until they find enough votes to declare the winner, whoever it is that they want to actually win that race. California, again, is not alone. I'm sure you also remember back in 2020, Republican poll challengers in Detroit saw all active military ballots of 71-year-old people from being counted. They were coming from Canada, and they were being counted in Detroit. There was a woman named Elizabeth Forlini. She was processing these absentee votes from the active military members when she started noticing something. She was seeing all these birth dates, 1938, 1939, 1940. Every single one was for Joe Biden. Go back to 2020 on this show, and we also identified people who were 140 years old in the state of Michigan that were casting ballots for Joe Biden. Simply does not make any sense, unless, of course, you have someone who has not officially been declared dead in terms of the voter rolls. Forlani thought that it was even more interesting because there wasn't a single ballot among this group that were voting for President Trump. So she wrote down a name and a ballot number because she was so concerned about the situation. She wrote down this name, a 71-year-old with an address in Detroit whose ballot was postmarked from Ontario. She said that the ballot number was 4880. She relayed that voter's name as Kathy Leal with a registered address of 4160 John R. Street, Detroit, Michigan, which Forlini was surprised that it was a location at the Karmanos Medical Center. So she calls the Karmanos Medical Center. They had never heard of Miss Leal or that address, and they suggested the University Medical Center. So she calls the University Medical Center. They said Miss Leal has a registered address for a doctor's office, but that her suite number doesn't actually exist. So not only is this person probably not alive or even real, but the address that they have registered on their voter registration application is fake. Now, in 2024, Democrats announced that all overseas voters could be the deciding factor in battleground states in that election. And there was quite a lot of reporting that I did on it at that time because we had done an estimate of the number of possible overseas military ballots. It was not even 2 million, I believe. And that counted families and spouses and individuals who were stationed in other areas around the world. But the Democrats were looking to increase the overseas military ballots in their favor by like 6 to 9 million. It was quite clear that they were hoping to count on those overseas military ballots to ensure that they would have a victory. Now, the former U.S. ambassador to Canada was a man named Bruce Heyman. He actually appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe in October of 2024, and he told the audience there that the efforts of the Democrat Party, they were hoping to mobilize millions of Americans living abroad. They basically figured we're going to get every single American who doesn't live in the United States, and we're going to ask that person to vote for our candidate. And he said, hey, the pivotal influence that these overseas voters could have in battleground states could make the difference between winning and losing because these margins are so close. He also telegraphed to the American people they believed that the key to winning the election would be that 9 million individuals that may vote for Kamala Harris, as I suggested. And the actual total of possible individuals living outside of the United States in all sectors was only 2.4 million. None of the so-called 9 million voters the Democrats said they were trying to recruit would have had to claim any proof for their identity. They wouldn't have to provide a legitimate address for a past or present residence in the United States. If they had ever held a residence in the state, they would be eligible based upon those new standards to register to vote there. There was another woman by the name of Heather Honey. She used to work at a company called Verity Vote. That was the UOCAVA, which is the Uniformed Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, is based on a federal law passed in 1986. And that's what requires that states allow members of the U.S. Armed Forces and their family members and any U.S. citizens residing outside of the U.S. to register and then vote absentee in elections for federal offices. It has to be in a standardized format. And UOCAVA requires that states allow the members of the U.S. Armed Forces and their family members to register, and then that allows them to continue to remain enfranchised and remain a part of the system, even if they don't want to live here for whatever reason. But that didn't happen in the way that they thought it would. Thank God, for whatever reason, they were unable to get those military and UOCAVA ballots together. Now, one thing that we talked about at the time was that if you were registering UOCAVA through the website for the state of Michigan, you would go here and they do request your U.S. voting address and a zip code. Again, you don't have to prove you live there, so if you have any address or any zip code, there's also not going to be any checks on that address. So you could use, say, a P.O. box or an empty dirt lot. You could even use a dentist's office or a homeless shelter. Then they would have to have your current non-U.S. address. Again, any address, nobody is going to show up and check. And then you may insert your Social Security number if you have one. Every single United States citizen who is eligible to vote would have a Social Security number. So if you don't have a Social Security number, you must provide the last 4 digits. No, I'm sorry. If you have the social, you only have to provide the last 4 digits. But if you don't, you can provide a state driver's license or other state identification card number. So think about how many people we found living in the United States of America, either illegally or under some type of immigrant status. They've been given state ID cards. They've been given driver's license numbers. So theoretically, those people could register to vote very easily. And we've actually seen that this has happened. Now, they say if you don't have either, just check the box that indicates I don't have the above identification. Most states will accept the form without a Social Security number or a state ID card. And if the state requires further information, your election official will contact you. Guarantee you in every single Democrat state, nobody was contacting anybody. They were just, okay, free for all. We're going to go ahead and take these ballots. So we dodged a major bullet because that should have opened the door for millions upon millions of ballots. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen. I'd like to think that somebody was waiting in the wings to ensure that those ballots did not get through. But this is still a loophole that is open. And we are about to have a midterm election here very soon. And as far as I'm concerned, the election is still insecure, which brings me to my next clip, which was posted. Oh, well, actually, what, honey? Okay. Lisa wants me to clarify that she wasn't feeling well this weekend. That's why I said I took care of her in bed. Okay. She's doing better now, but she wasn't feeling good this weekend. Okay. Now, I meant to show this earlier, but Ed Martin at the DOJ also met with Elon Musk apparently over the weekend. I don't know who this young woman is here. I don't know if she's an employee at the DOJ or if she's related to Ed or she's related to Elon, but he just posted the picture of them together, and I thought that was notable. And this is the clip that I meant to have loaded up next. So in regards to, where the heck is it? Everything is all out of order. Okay, here it is. In regards to the SAVE Act passing through the Senate, Anna Paulina Luna had said before that they were going to do some unique maneuvering to ensure that the SAVE Act would be passed. And she posted this clip earlier. If the Senate does not pass the SAVE Act, they have failed the American people. They absolutely have. Now, President Trump appeared, I believe, on Fox over the weekend talking about the importance of the SAVE Act. Let's go ahead and listen.
President Trump is drawing attention to his SAVE Act when asked about his plans to unify the country during his Super Bowl interview yesterday.
Well, you know, we're working on the Save America Act, which is going to secure up a lot of things, but secure up our voting. I think people would like to do it, and I think Democrats would too. And you ask Democrats, it's polling at 82% with Democrats.
Meanwhile, Democrat Senator Adam Schiff is being confronted on this polling showing an overwhelming 83% of Americans supporting requiring a photo ID to vote.
71% of Democrats favor requiring photo ID. Is that something that you can support? And if not, why not?
It's still going to be something, Jonathan. It's still going to be something that disenfranchises people.
Well, no date has been set yet for a vote on the SAVE Act. President Trump is drawing attention.
So again, the SAVE Act is currently hung up in committee. The committee that is run by Mitch McConnell, who is not working right now because he took another bad spill about a week ago. I don't know what the hell else is holding them up except for the fact that although the majority of Americans want the SAVE Act to pass because they want voter ID to be the law of the land, it would appear that a significantly fewer number of elected officials in both the Democrat and Republican parties don't want the SAVE Act to pass. Now, although plenty of Republicans, it would seem, in the Senate are standing in the way of the SAVE Act actually getting passed, one of those people that is not standing in the way is Democrat Senator John Fetterman. Take a listen to this.
And now, me as a Democrat, I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, you know, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote. And they also elected a very, very liberal justice into their Supreme Court. So it's not a radical idea for regular Americans to show your ID to vote. And it's absolutely, those things are not Jim Crow or anything. Of course, that's part of an awful, awful legacy of our nation for so long ago. But where we are now, trying to find a way forward, just trying to call balls and strikes, seeing what's unreasonable, hopefully we don't have to do, and pay the TSA people and everyone, secure our border, and focus on deporting all of those kinds of criminals, wherever they are. That's the guy that votes for that and supports that as a Democrat, and I don't ever want to vote to shut our government down again.
Right.
So, once again, John Fetterman continues to surprise. He's even with a massive stroke that took him out of the game for months. He appears to have greater sense in that egg-shaped dome than most of the people who have been in this Congress for generations at this point. Gotta laugh every single time. Hogleg71, thank you for the can and the cookie. And Trump 1 says, hey, Zach and Lisa, happy Monday. Thank you for that, you guys. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, and they always forget to say Jim Crow is an awful legacy of the Democrat Party. Thank you for that, Revel, and you're absolutely correct. It may be a legacy that took place here in the United States of America, but it was the Democrat Party that was the one pushing Jim Crow laws. They were the ones standing outside of polling places ensuring that men and women would be unable to enter. They were the ones charging poll taxes. They were the ones doing reading tests outside of those things. TJ, feel the burn. Good Lord. Thank you for the $100 Rumble rant. I sent the best Save America Act idea to your X account. It must be done even through National Security Executive Order. Well, in that case, let me go ahead and pull this up. And okay, so you're going to have to tell me what your name is on X, because it is, I'm sorry, is it a DM or did you just tag me? Oh, I see it. Trevor. Okay, got it. Okay, let me pull this up, and then we'll move on to the next segment. Okay, Trevor says, I'll go ahead and give you a follow. No one but the county clerks, precinct managers, or volunteers under them can count votes. No money or jobs can be sent or handed off to NGOs or third parties, nor can money be accepted or people be volunteered to work for the county or precinct managers by third party or NGOs. 100%, I think that NGOs should not have any business putting their hands into elections. No NGO or third party can have access to state voter rolls. Absolutely. It's never made any sense to me that NGOs and third parties are able to have access to state voter rolls, and yet the exact same states that hand them off to people who are not in the government are not willing to hand it off to the federal government for the purposes of ensuring that those voter rolls are clean and not filled with dead people, illegal aliens, et cetera, et cetera. They will be fined $10,000 per citizen if that happens. I think that's wonderful. And you know what? It should be a personal liability. It should be the liability payable to the citizen themselves. So my voter information gets sent to an NGO. The NGO would ostensibly have to pay $10,000 to each citizen for the violation of their private information. Of course, that would put the NGOs out of business pretty quickly. If any non-citizens are on the voter rolls, or dead people, or underage people, or people who have moved, each state will be fined $10,000 per ineligible voter on the voter rolls. They are to be updated weekly by the state, county, or precinct. Weekly might be a little much. I think that they would definitely push back on it, but certainly I think it should be at a minimum a yearly process because, you do it once a year. There's really no way they can complain about it. Certainly if you do it once a year, that is also going to ensure that it's done before the next election is going to be held. Number 3, all areas where votes are counted must have a 24/7 public video stream going from 4 angles. Zoomed in, which show each person counting ballots. 100% agreed. There must be a weigh station that ballots are set in that determines the weight versus count. This will ensure no ballot stuffing or fake, heavier, or lightweight paper. I can totally get behind that. Number 4, voter ID is required along with a driver's license or a second ID verifying who you are. Absolutely. No non-citizen can vote. If they attempt to, they will be deported. If this is voter intimidation, it doesn't apply since only non-citizens afraid of being deported wouldn't show, and voter rights don't extend to them, at least in federal elections. 100%. No mail-in ballots. Yes, please. Only military and military ID attached, since overseas ballot registration is way too loose, as we saw in 2020 and 2024, with exponentially more votes than ever before. Number 5, no machines to vote on, no tabulator machines to count on, no electronic poll books, which are remotely accessible, can be unlawfully updated during elections. This will erase any need of voting machine certifications forever. Number 6, one-day voting, paper ballots, hand-counted, same-day results. Make this effective immediately. This is the Save America Act 250. On behalf of the deplorable citizens of the United States of America, voting majority constituents, thank you for your attention to this matter. I'll go ahead and retweet that. Great ideas. I am with you 100% on all of them. And real quickly, if you don't mind, I need to pin my show from today to my profile. And there we go. All right, Trevor, great ideas all around. Thank you so much for the generous donation. Really do appreciate it. Okay, now, next, we have to give an update on what is happening with the claims against Tulsi Gabbard, because she had last week responded in part to those allegations, but now the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has responded, and there has been an adjustment made to the story. This is another fake whistleblower story, which is coming from the same group of deep state swamp rats that brought you the fake Ukrainian impeachment whistleblower story while President Trump was in office in the first round. Before we do that, though, one more message from our friends over here at Rumble. My friends, they can freeze your accounts, they can shut off your cards, they can lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks do not protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether, you also can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That is power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer, and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. Once again, head on over to wallet.rumble.com. If you're off Rumble, if you're on Rumble, you can use that QR code, or you can just go to the App Store on your phone. Thank you very much. All right, so first of all, we had this scoop, so to speak, from a reporter who was working for The Guardian. The Guardian, of course, is a British newspaper. They have ties directly to Christopher Steele, the creator of the Steele dossier, and one of the key figures involved with the original hoax against President Trump, the Russia hoax. In this article, she says, scoop, the NSA detected a phone call between foreign intelligence and a person close to Trump last spring. So this was the meat of the DNI whistleblower report, that allegedly this phone call was intercepted by someone at NSA. They made the whistleblower report. Of course, it went to Tulsi Gabbard, and then Tulsi Gabbard is the one who said, we're not going to go talking about this because it doesn't have any merit to it. So Alexa Henning replies. She is the deputy chief of staff for Tulsi Gabbard, and she says, your story is false. The headline is not accurate. Your leaker lied to you, and you ignored our request to give us time to get you accurate information, and you published your story before we could even respond. You are a total loser being used by your sources, likely Congress, to leak highly classified information. So Kate Brown is a shill for the deep state. She not only works at The Guardian, but she used to work at the Washington Post. I have to wonder if she got this job at The Guardian only after she was fired by the Washington Post, because, of course, we just had nearly 400 mainstream media journalist hacks get fired by them just last week. Now, we also have a description of exactly how this process would have gone. And this is coming from our friend over here at The Last Refuge. He says, learn the DC intel game. So the NSA whistleblower is angry with Tulsi Gabbard because she didn't share this report with others. And then because she didn't share this report, this individual files a whistleblower complaint on April 17th, 2025 with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. So within the complaint, this NSA whistleblower included the details of the phone call leading to the complaint being labeled top secret compartmentalized information. So TSCI classification. The fact that it was formatted that way, TSCI material, complicates how the complaint can be reviewed. This appears to have been done on purpose. So because the complaint contained that top secret compartmentalized information, it would mean that ordinary whistleblower pathways forwarding it to Congress would not be in place. The inclusion of that TSCI material, the highly sensitive part, allegedly, creates a conflict within the process. So that TSCI material is the name of the individual associated with foreign intelligence and the name of this person allegedly close to Trump. So the NSA whistleblower complaint is against Tulsi Gabbard, but any complaint containing TSCI material must carry guidance from, you guessed it, the DNI, Miss Gabbard herself, for any further sharing. So the NSA whistleblower likely intended to create this feedback loop, this problem, as part of the scheme, which then set it up so that it could be reported that Tulsi Gabbard has a whistleblower complaint against her, and she's not telling anybody about it, pretending as if not only is there this foreign intelligence breach within the Trump administration, but then knowing there is this breach, Tulsi Gabbard then covers it up. However, as we just laid out for you, it really has to do with the classification of the material. Tulsi Gabbard is unable to share it. But in addition to that, they also investigated the complaint itself, and they determined that it was all a lie. There was no merit to this complaint. So really, there is no reason to share it with anyone else. So early this morning, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence put out this notification on Twitter. For nearly a week, the complainant's attorney, and that attorney is the same one who represented Eric Charamella in the fake Ukraine impeachment hoax, has falsely complained that DNI Gabbard violated the law. This is a slanderous lie. So today, the ODNI's general counsel lays out the facts. Number one, neither the Biden era nor Trump-appointed Intelligence Community Inspector General ever found his client's allegations credible. Number two, his client was informed within 3 days that DNI Gabbard had provided required security guidance. Number three, his client remains an IC employee and has the right to report the fact of existence, not the contents of the complaint to Congress. Number four, the whistleblower's rights do not extend to the attorney himself. Number five, due to the highly classified nature of the information involved, which the attorney is not cleared to review, ODNI correctly required the ICIG to hand deliver the complaint only to the Gang of Eight, not to the entirety of Congress. Any allegations to the contrary are baseless and, frankly, theatrical. You can read more here. We're going to read through this. So, Mr. Bakaj, Andrew Bakaj, is the lawyer in question, and he is written by the ODNI. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence has received your letter dated the 3rd of February. In this letter, you falsely allege misconduct, demand security guidance, which has already been provided, and threaten an unclassified briefing to congressional intelligence committees. You also demand access to classified matters and interactions with Congress. Your letter misrepresents the statute and ignores the fact that the Director of National Intelligence has followed the law throughout the process. Any allegations to the contrary are what are baseless and do not accurately reflect the DNI's actions to keep the relevant congressional committees fully informed. Now, the complaint is not credible. At no time did either the ICIG, the Inspector General for the Intelligence Community, then acting ICIG Tamara Johnson, or the current ICIG, determine that your client's allegations were credible. On June 4th of 2025, then acting IC Johnson determined the complaint, if true, met the statutory definition of urgent concern, but was unable to determine its credibility, despite the fact that this determination is required by law. On the 9th of June, acting ICIG Johnson issued a supplemental determination memorandum finding that the first allegation did not appear credible while remaining unable to assess the apparent credibility of the second allegation. As a result of then acting IG's refusal to determine whether she deemed the complaint credible, any requested response from the DNI was not time-bound, as you incorrectly imply, as the law does not provide a timeline for provision of security guidance in that particular circumstance. Now, you have also indicated that you intend to contact the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence to provide them with an unclassified briefing on the 9th of February. That would be today. Your claim of a right to go to Congress pursuant to the law is incorrect. I remind you that there is a clear statutory mechanism for which intelligence community personnel may report complaints or information about urgent concerns to Congress, and your proposed briefing violates this process. The highly classified nature of the underlying complaint increases the risk that you or your client inadvertently or otherwise breaks the law by divulging or mishandling classified information. I kind of want them to just let them do it. Like, go ahead and violate that privilege right there. Leak classified information so that we can have you arrested and then just put you on trial. You may have other means of appearing in front of Congress, but this is not it, buddy. Furthermore, despite your contentions to the contrary, the protections and rights attributed to whistleblowers, including your client, do not extend to you. The complainant remains authorized to notify Congress of the fact of their complaint not details of the contents itself. So on the 2nd of February, ODNI provided ICIG with security guidance on how to pass your client's complaint to the intelligence committees. ODNI understands your client was notified of this action within 3 days of its completion. Given the highly classified nature of the underlying allegations that your client chose to include, the ICIG's normal methods of informing the committees of those allegations were insufficient to protect exquisite intelligence. Therefore, ODNI provided security guidance that your client's complaint be hand-delivered to the ICIG and the Gang of Eight on a read and return basis, and that no notes be taken. As a result, ODNI has satisfied congressional notification requirements. The transmittal letter from the current ICIG to Congress has also provided Congress and the public with any other reasons why this abnormal complaint took longer than usual to provide to Congress. Your letter on 3rd February states, this means that our client's complete whistleblower disclosure must be transmitted to Congress and that we, as their counsel, speak with members and cleared staff. There is no basis in law for this assertion. A whistleblower complaint is transmitted to Congress with redactions and handling instructions as appropriate. You have also implied that the ODNI buried this complaint through classification, but the classification of the complaint is the direct reason of your client taking the unprecedented step of putting highly classified intelligence in the whistleblower intake form. As a result, ODNI has taken the proper steps in accordance with established security requirements to properly safeguard that material. The DNI has consistently reiterated her commitment to whistleblower protection and transparency, and she has met all notification requirements associated with this matter by ensuring that the allegation was transmitted to the Gang of Eight and remains in steadfast support of transparency and accountability. Now, F off. Get out of here. This dude is attempting to subvert the process and get around what would normally be established. Also, attempting to influence the people of the United States of America using the mainstream media and their proxies in Congress to contest that Tulsi Gabbard has done something incorrect or that she is not protecting the rights of whistleblowers. But obviously, that's not the case. I love that she isn't as intelligent as she is. It's quite clear that she and her office have quite the grasp on exactly what they should be doing, how they should be proceeding, and the direction that everything should be going. So we also have this announcement. You guys, I know I talked about it, but it's been several weeks, so you may not remember. I believe both Texas and Florida have become the first states to do away with affiliations with the American Bar Association. Previously, law schools in Florida and Texas had to both be accredited by the American Bar Association. That's no longer the case. Now, law schools will be certified by the state Supreme Court. And the Labor Department of the United States government has also ordered their lawyers to cut ties with the American Bar Association as well. So just earlier today, the Department of Labor's Trump-appointed Solicitor General Jonathan Berry told staff to stop engaging with the American Bar Association in their official capacities. Berry noted in an email that was sent to Fox News Digital that the organization engages in liberal activism and that any federal participation would only boost its influence. Jonathan Berry wrote this email, sent it out to hundreds of attorneys at the Department of Labor. They are not to use taxpayer funds to participate in any ABA events or use their government job titles at them. The ABA is strategically unequivocal about its ideological stance, Berry wrote. Equivocal in that the ABA holds itself out as a non-ideological organization at certain times, but it takes decidedly radical ideological positions at others. There is genuine benefit to our attorneys engaging with the employer bar in ABA programs, but the benefit genuinely feeds the problem too. Our participation in neutral ABA events contributes to institutional stature the ABA leverages to advance radical goals as if they were neutral. Well, no more. Now, the ABA is a voluntary professional organization for lawyers that describes itself as nonpartisan. It's supposed to be focusing on advancing the rule of law, professional standards, and access to justice. But as we have seen, many of the positions that this organization adopts aligns exclusively with leftist propaganda, and critics have argued for a long time they are essentially a trade association for America's 1.3 million lawyers, a cartel with positions that include the following. They advocate frequently for abortion access. They, of course, also fight for LGBTQ rights and gender-affirming care. They take stances in favor of gun control. They are also in favor of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And they also collaborate directly with a whole bunch of leftist organizations like the ACLU or the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Lambda Legal. They are frequently seeking the wrong position on things like voting rights or immigration reform or anti-discrimination laws. And the ABA's judicial ratings have also been accused of downgrading conservative nominees while they are instead favoring liberal nominees. In May of 2025, the Justice Department noted that the organization sent the letter to the organization from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi that they would no longer comply with their ratings process for judicial nominees. She said at that time, for several decades, the American Bar Association has received special treatment and enjoyed special access to judicial nominees. In some administrations, the ABA received notice of nominees before a nominee was even announced to the public. Some administrations would even decide whether to nominate an individual based on a rating assigned by the ABA. Well, none of that will be taking place anymore. The American Bar Association is losing their luster, and they are becoming less and less relevant as time goes on. I really do love it. All right, now we have another situation with a lawyer, this time for a young woman, I think, looking at her, her name is Glenna. Glenna had worked for New York Attorney General Letitia James. She was actually fired because she spoke out against gender-affirming care. So after losing her job, she continued to speak out. But the good news is she's now been hired by the Federal Trade Commission. She's going to be working for President Trump's administration. Now, she actually does describe herself as a lefty lesbian lawyer. And during her tenure at Letitia James's New York State Attorney General's office, she was working in the Consumer Fraud Bureau. And she spoke publicly against using puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors. So in July, she publicly participated in an FTC roundtable on transgender procedures in her private capacity, noting during her remarks that gender identity, the way it is defined by gender doctors, has no definition. Let's take a listen.
Second, this is a big one, gender identity. Doctors claim that consumers, patients, have a gender identity that is incongruent with their body. But it's impossible for gender identity to be different from a body or the same as a body because gender identity, the way it is defined by gender doctors, has no definition. It has no properties. So this is an important point. I think a lot of people assume that gender identity means wanting to be one sex or the other. And gender doctors almost make it look like that's what they mean because they say that gender identity can be male, female, or something else. But it's a trick because remember, gender doctors think that a male is anybody who says they're a male. So it's a circular definition, like gender identity is somebody who has a male gender identity kind of thing.
I identify as a millionaire. Now, where's my cut? I want my suitcase full of money because I say that I'm a millionaire. So, after giving this speech, she was fired by Letitia James. Of course, Letitia James is as left as they get. So she wrote on X, "Today I was fired by New York Attorney General Letitia James for speaking out against pediatric gender medicine. I was an attorney in the Consumer Frauds Bureau, which did not work on anything related to PGM, pediatric gender medicine. Since 2024, I've been raising the alarm publicly, and I think the New York AG should be working against PGM providers. They could be engaged in dangerous consumer fraud. And James's officials treated me like a pest for bringing it up." She also shared a powerful takedown of Letitia James's empty threat against responsible doctors on her Substack, noting, "I used to work for James. She fired me on January 22nd because of my public critique of trans legal arguments. They undermine James's mission, work ethics, work and efforts, including litigation positions and credibility." So she will be working as a senior litigator in the Bureau of Consumer Protection. She's going to spearhead investigations into potential harms from so-called gender-affirming care. Went on to say that Glenna is a extraordinary, brave, and intelligent woman with an impressive history of working on consumer protection matters, and we are so excited to have her on the board. She also appeared on Megyn Kelly earlier this year, but we're not going to go ahead and look at that. I think it's obvious where she stands on this stuff. And I also find it interesting that even though she identified publicly previously as a lefty lesbian, I wonder what she would identify with now, because it seems that the positions she holds are incongruent with the modern left. So we also, I did not mean to pull that up, so we're just going to go from that. We also have an interesting situation in Catalina, Arizona. A Mexican restaurant owned by a Mexican American has gone viral for offering free meals to ICE agents. His name is Jorge Rivas. He's not Mexican. He's Salvadorans. They're pretty sweet. They make great food. He's the owner of Sammy's Mexican Grill, and he's planning to give free meals to ICE agents and all federal law enforcement officers. So if you're in ICE, if you're in CBP, if you're working for the federal government, you happen to be going through Catalina, stop on by Sammy's Mexican Grill, get yourself some pupusas or anything that you might like, maybe a burrito or a taco plate. Now, Rivas is a legal immigrant. He immigrated to the United States of America, and he emphasized that the agents will be treated with the respect they deserve. Absolutely based. At least it was not Pornhub like the CNN situation Zach just met. What? Pornhub? Did somebody pull up Pornhub live on the air or something like that? That will never happen on my channel, just so that you guys are aware. Closest thing you're going to get is a pair of boobs on X or something like that, because sometimes you can't help it. Somebody shares something and tags something with it. All right, so let's go ahead and listen to Jorge discuss why he did this. Free meals for ICE agents, and it's drawing backlash and support. Let me also say, if you live in Catalina or in the area and you're not a federal agent, go support Sammy. Go support Sammy. Go buy a meal. Give this guy some cash. Get yourself a plate of whatever it is that you possibly could.
Everyone who works for ICE, all federal agents, can come to Sammy's Mexican Grill. Here they will be treated with respect and as they deserve.
Okay, you may have a problem with porn if your browser is going to be featured live on CNN and you simply can't bring yourself to close down whatever depravity you're looking at. That is absolutely insane. All right, now, the leftists who live in the area have seized on this video. They've begun attacking Mr. Rivas and the establishment. They're demanding a boycott, which is why I think it's so important that if you live in this area of Arizona, you should go there and you should support him. Rivas, undeterred, has accused his critics of suffering from terminal Trump derangement syndrome. And he also appeared on a podcast elaborating on his support for ICE, saying that as a legal immigrant, he really values the rule of law and he wants to express the gratitude that he holds for the people who are enforcing it. He said, "I know firsthand what it means to come here the right way. I've said this on so many occasions. The people who immigrate to the United States of America legally, who go through the process, who sacrifice to leave their home countries behind, often leaving behind some difficult circumstances, they come here for a reason. Because they want to live safely, because they want to live in a country where the rule of law is actually enforced, where you're not going to have to worry about death squads plucking you off the streets and then throwing your body out of a helicopter in the middle of the jungle. Love you too, SFR58. Thank you very much. But yes, we simply cannot allow these people to continue destroying our country. And we need more people like this man right here. All right. Oh, gosh. Still on the subject of immigration. Over the weekend, this crazy woman named Isis Irving drove by in Portland.
That's why you're sitting here.
Okay, so first of all, there are some pro-Trump protesters out in front of the federal building in Portland. She drives by. She gets out of her car. She's clearly been drinking. She's a loud-mouthed leftist broad, and she attacks some people. You may have heard of Tommy for Trump 420. He's been out there on the streets for quite some time. She gets into a fight with these people. She assaults one of them, and she gets maced in the face. We're going to go ahead and watch it.
That's why you're sitting here mad.
She's chipping out.
You wanna be.
She's chipping out. Me what? You've drank too much. You've drank too much. You are drinking too much. Don't touch me. Don't fucking touch me.
You're an evil ass son of a bitch.
How much have you drank tonight? How much have you? I don't think so.
It's fuck ice.
I don't think so.
Every Nazi ass, Gestapo ass, pink dick ass bitch that can't stay hard enough to impregnate his cousin to continue his bloodline.
That's assault. That's assault. Now, we're going to see it from a different angle, because from the other angle, you can actually see this woman getting maced. I'm not going to play for you her freak out once again. This is actually, I'm sorry, this is a different clip, but this is the aftermath. So after this girl gets maced, right away she gets maced, and then one of the other people steals the phone off the ground, and then they have to go and pry it out of her I mean, I think it's a girl. They pry it out of the individual's hands, and it kind of becomes a fracas, a free-for-all. I don't even understand what's going on here with this one.
You can see you're not maced.
That's hers, I think. Why are you trying to?
Yeah, see, we're not.
Okay, anyways. So then she drives by with a BB gun and she shoots these people.
Let's go, boys! Let's go, boys!
Here she comes in the white car.
Round the horn.
Damn.
There's a water bottle right there.
Hey, you're triggered, aren't you?
Oh, look at that, look at that, look at that.
Oh shit, she just shot me with a BB gun.
And she's going down the wrong way.
She just shot me with a BB gun. She just shot me in the face with a fucking BB gun.
478.
She just shot me in the face with a BB gun, bro.
So not only was she the aggressor when she got out of her car, she deserved to get maced in the face. And then she drove by and shot a BB gun at these people. She hit Tommy for Trump in the face. She could have taken somebody's eye out. Here she is playing the victim afterwards. She got chemical burns on her face because she got maced in the face, and she didn't leave to go wash it off quickly enough, probably because she was drunk and she didn't think that it was a big deal. She thought she was tough or something like that. But take a look.
So I just woke up to MAGA doxing me. Mind you, this is what...
Oh, that's also... She also used her real name online, and they saw her license plate, and they tracked her down almost immediately. And then, yes, they did dox her, but I have absolutely no sympathy for this woman.
They did to my face. This is what they did to me. And now they're doxing me all over the internet, and they did this to me. Look at my face. I have second-degree burns all over my face. I can't even move my face. I did not attack anyone. I didn't hurt
Okay, we already know that's a lie. Twice.
anybody. All I did was move his camera. And he attacked me. Look at what he did to me. They vandalized my car. They kicked a dent in my car. They threw water bottles at me, threw water at me. And now they're all in my comments calling me the N-word.
Yeah, they may have said a whole bunch of different things. I mean, the internet's going to do what the internet's going to do. I don't care. But one of the ways that they were able to identify her was because she had herself listed as a realtor in Portland, Oregon. She had an Instagram. She had a webpage on EdwardsonRealty.com. Oops. And when you go to that page, now the page is gone. EdwardsonRealty.com has confirmed that ISIS is no longer working there after her unhinged and unprovoked attack of these First Amendment protesters on the side of the street. You can see from the videos I just showed you, she verbally and physically assaulted these people. She recklessly drove by, shot a BB gun at them, hit some of them in the body and in the face. Again, that was another form of assault. She also drove the wrong way down that street, and that's why she stopped, because she realized she was going the wrong way. But
here she comes. Round the horn.
Why is it playing it again? She realized she was going the wrong way, and she tried to stop. But now she's playing the victim. Now she's trying to tell people that she was the one who was assaulted. This is an excellent example of owning your mistakes. You F around, you're gonna find out. ISIS, there you go. All right, now we're going to switch gears from ICE, and we're going to transition into Jeffrey Epstein once again, because so many things have been discovered from the new Epstein files. First of all, this is not Epstein, but it is Epstein adjacent. A top researcher at Meta, which is the company, the parent company of Facebook, warned company executives that there could be as many as 500,000 cases. That's 500,000 cases of child sexual exploitation happening per day on Facebook and Instagram. Now, we only know about this because these explosive documents have been unsealed as part of a landmark jury trial that is set to take place very, very soon. Opening arguments actually began today in New Mexico, and it is actually the Attorney General of New Mexico that has brought this case against Meta in court. They are accusing Mark Zuckerberg's various social media companies of exposing children to the, quote, twin dangers of sexual exploitation and mental health harm through creepy messages, sextortion schemes, and yes, even human trafficking. So the result is that a teen social media crisis has led to anxiety, depression, self-harm, and a staggering number of suicides. Ahead of this trial beginning today, the lawyers for the state cited an internal memo in which a researcher named Malia Andrus, who held child safety-related roles at Meta from August of 2017 to October of 2024, wrote that creeps targeted roughly 500,000 victims per day in English markets only with sexually inappropriate messages. That means that it's a hell of a lot more than 500,000 kids per day. That is only among English language messages. We expect the true situation is worse, Andrus said in a June 2020 email, according to court records. And what do you think Facebook did? Pardon my French. They did fuck all. They did absolutely nothing. In another chilling message, Andrus noted that the massive user bases of Facebook and Instagram have effectively handed predators a tool to target kids on a scale that was previously unimaginable. I just think nowhere in the history of humanity could you have a secret conversation with 1,000 people. I am actually scared of the ramifications here, she said. Now, the lawsuit by the state of New Mexico is one of a number of legal battles that Meta is going to be facing this year, and it will seek to shine a light on safety lapses that have caught the attention of lawmakers in Washington, D.C. Last week, a bellwether trial accusing both Meta and Google-owned YouTube of fueling social media addiction in young users began in California, with hundreds of victims' families and school districts entering as plaintiffs. In another place, the FTC appealed its loss in the major antitrust lawsuit which sought to break up Meta. Now, the multiple trials accusing Meta of exposing children to harm are a split screen of Mark Zuckerberg nightmares, according to the director of the Tech Oversight Project. They are a watchdog group that tracks these sorts of cases. These are the trials of a generation. Just as the world watched courtrooms hold big tobacco and big pharma accountable, we will, for the first time, see big tech CEOs like Zuck take the stand. The world is watching. Meta's reckoning has arrived, and the consequences have just begun. Now, New Mexico, oh, hold on, this is not working. New Mexico's case has been closely watched in part because of the garish details that arose during their probe of Meta's practices. They set up test accounts, but state by state, so that investigators could see what would happen if they went in there as children. Allegedly, they were bombarded with adult sex content and outreach from alleged child predators, including pictures and videos of genitalia, an offer of a six-figure payment to star in a porn video as well. Other emails detailed in pretrial hearings show that the age verification tools were not doing their job. Kids are not supposed to be underage, I guess, on Instagram. And if they were to put incorrect information in, there was nothing to stop them. Our investigators have given feedback that almost every time they encounter an age liar on Instagram in context of child safety, the age prediction is incorrect. That aligns with the age they falsely claim to be. So somebody who's, 50 could go into Instagram, set an account up, and pretend to be a 16-year-old, and then they get matched up with other 16-year-olds. While New Mexico makes sensationalist, irrelevant, and distracting arguments, the lawyers for Meta said, we're focusing on demonstrating our long-standing commitment to supporting young people. For over a decade, we've listened to parents, worked with experts in law enforcement, and conducted in-depth research to understand the issues that matter most. What about kids getting DM raped by adult predators? It seems like that's the one thing y'all haven't been doing. Now, Andrus left Meta in 2024, now works for the online safety role at OpenAI, not returning requests for comments at this time. And the state has argued that Andrus has deep knowledge of Meta's handling of the online sex abuse problem because she was working extensively on the internal research, including serving as a member of a groomers task force, which examined adult predators who solicited minors. Miss Andrus also commented on Meta's failure to adequately invest in child safety, the misleading nature of some of their publicly reported child safety metrics, and the undisclosed immaturity of Instagram's child safety measures. So Meta attorneys have tried to block any mention of several sensitive topics, including the company's AI chatbots, research surveys detailing the harmful effects of its products on mental health, and details of the bombshell undercover operation that New Mexico investigators conducted to reveal instances of online sexual abuse. First Judicial District Judge Brian Beidscheld ultimately rejected those requests during pretrial hearings. Elsewhere, other internal documents showed that Mark Zuckerberg himself signed off on allowing minors to use Meta's AI chatbot companions, even after safety staffers warned they could be used for romantic or sexualized conversations. And Torres has aggressively criticized Zuckerberg ahead of the trial. He derided Instagram's implementation of a PG-13 rating system to shield kids from illicit content as a dangerous promotional stunt that lulls parents into a false sense of security. Meta has accused Torres of making claims that are littered with factual errors and misrepresentations and ignoring the company's progress in improving guardrails for kids. Well, any number of kids, especially at this rate on a social media platform that are subject to the types of abuse these kids are subject to nowadays, is absolutely unacceptable. So I have no problem with the state going after them. Can't wait to see Mark Zuckerberg testify in court on this one. All right. Now, in regards to Jeffrey Epstein, his most recent, at the time of his death, he was dating a woman by the name of Karina Shuliak. We've talked about Karina Shuliak because she was the one that Jeffrey Epstein left $100 million to. He also left the Little St. James and the Greater St. James Islands to. He left her a 32-carat diamond ring that he was allegedly going to propose to her with. She was also one of the last people to speak to him when he was quote unquote alive at the end of his life. He claimed that he was going to be calling his mother, but he called her instead. Now, a Twitter account using the name Karina Shuliak became active over the weekend. And it was claimed by the person using this account that it was the Karina Shuliak. She had said a number of things like Elon is not in the Epstein files, Trump is in the Epstein files, Jeffrey was innocent. There are satanic pedophiles sacrificing and eating children. Jeffrey did this initially for money, and then he got wrapped up with bad people. I will tell the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of people started following her. I want to say she had like 37,000 followers. Well, she had like 400 followers when I found her, and she had 37,000 followers by the time that her account was taken down. But the thing, I was waiting for her to make a public statement or to do an interview or to show some other proof of life besides this picture. This picture right here was available in the Epstein files. So it wasn't like it was the only place you could find it. But at some point on her timeline, she posted about a crypto coin. And allegedly, someone in the Karina Shuliak community had created a crypto coin that they were going to use to donate to her. And she said, oh, I don't have a crypto coin, but if the community wants to support it, I'm happy to accept it. Thanks you. Thanks you. That's interesting. And then she said, I want to clarify, I did not create any cryptocurrency. From what I understand, the crypto community created a token to show their support, and I know Jeffrey was involved in the crypto space. Like I said, any revenue will go to real victims, and it will all be documented. I don't need money. I'm doing very well for myself. So she had set up an interview with Mario Nawfal, big guy on X, and then also Alex Jones. And then when they asked her to verify her identity, she balked at showing up for the interview, and then she cut off communication. Then she claimed that she was being silenced and that these people were putting unnecessary pressure on her. And she said, I will do this myself at 7 p.m. on X, and if I get banned, then you have to go to my Telegram. And I went and followed her Telegram. She was banned. She never did a show. She never did a space. She never ended up on anybody else's program. As far as I know, this account has completely disappeared. And the reason it's gone, in my opinion, is because it was never Karina Shuliak to begin with. What's more than that, Mario Nawfal was able to actually reach out to the actual lawyer of Karina Shuliak. And Karina Shuliak confirmed this is not her account. So I say this as a cautionary tale because a lot of people were following this account and they were like, oh, you need to tell us the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. If they shut you down, it's guaranteed Elon is trying to stop you from speaking out. And that's just simply not the way that it is. People are far too trusting online. You need to have a little bit more discernment than perhaps you would in your personal life because anybody online can say just about anything. And oftentimes they do. They are seeking to take advantage. And I've told you guys on so many different occasions, like some random person shows up and asks you to buy a crypto coin. That is probably the last thing you should do. And there you go. So perfect example right here. Thank you very much to the Canadian for the fleet. Thank you, my friend. He says, monthly podcast donation. Cheers, Zach. Thank you, sir. Hats off to you. Hope that you're staying warm up there. Also, Darla says, so sorry Lisa was not feeling well on her birthday weekend. Thank you, Zach, again for your hard work and great information as usual. Thank you for that, Darla. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Now, another bit of misinformation. I actually talked about this on OnlyLands the other night. So I've seen a lot of people sharing a number of different images of Jeffrey Epstein in this room or another room. And you can see in the background, there are these boxes that say CIA. Okay. And people have said, why is Jeffrey Epstein standing in a CIA reading room? Or why is Jeffrey Epstein standing in a CIA vault with all of this information around him? It's a great question, except in this instance, CIA does not stand for Central Intelligence Agency. It actually stands for Cleveland Institute of Art. And I want you to take note of what's on these tables back here. These are piles of leather that are being used for like clothing and stuff. This is not the Central Intelligence Agency. It is the Cleveland Institute of Art. So this is not Jeffrey Epstein at the CIA. However, did find an email over the weekend that Jeffrey Epstein discusses the fact that he is visiting a skiff, which of course is a secure compartmentalized information facility, which you're only going to have access to if you are a person with security clearance. Now, there's no other reason that Jeffrey Epstein would be visiting a SCIF unless he was going to be receiving a classified briefing. Take a look at this. He's actually speaking with Steve Bannon in this conversation. And he mentions, Ehud is here with me. Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel. I've said nothing, as always, but if you would like insight, feel free to posit a question, meaning if Steve Bannon wants to ask Ehud Barak a question without saying it's from Steve Bannon, he can. You would have loved my tech meeting in the SCIF. I laughed so loud that I thought I would be overheard in the neighborhood. He also says here in another message with Steve Bannon, the intel here is superb and not instructive to help with strategy. Any ideas yet? On the coup I'm deep in the middle of. Now, this is 2017, so this would be, I would imagine, the coup against President Trump. And Jeffrey Epstein responds, K, going into a SCIF tomorrow. You can see here in another message with Steve Bannon. He says, I suggest, I'm in town Monday, let's meet, Steve Bannon says. Jeffrey Epstein replies, say, I suggest my house, 9 East 71, similar to a SCIF, you choose the time, meaning that his house is essentially as secure as a SCIF. Insane, absolutely insane that Jeffrey Epstein would have access to an actual SCIF, but also kind of expected if Jeffrey Epstein, quote unquote, belonged to intelligence. But because this guy is a freaking sex offender, he has no business gaining access to classified information. We don't know who was giving him this information. We don't know if he had the actual security clearance or if somebody was just letting him in because he was the king of blackmail. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I just accidentally closed that. Edit, undo, close tab. And go back. And Liz Crokin writes here, in light of Jeffrey Epstein using a SCIF, suggesting he may have been accessing classified material. It's important to note that in Bradley Edwards' book, Relentless Pursuit, Bradley Edwards was a bodyguard for Jeffrey Epstein. He claimed that while Epstein was serving his first jail sentence in 2006, he sent his bodyguard to CIA headquarters in Virginia for a special training course. I didn't know why I was there, but he told me they would take care of me. I attended a class for a week. At the beginning of the class, everyone had to introduce themselves. There were 45 people. 45 people who were in the CIA or some other government unit with top security clearance. I was the only private citizen. Everyone introduced themselves, and the instructor saved me for last. Now, this is very interesting. He did not let me introduce myself. Instead, he introduced me as what he called a special operative. So Jeffrey Epstein's bodyguard was sent by Jeffrey Epstein to the Central Intelligence Agency to take this week-long training class, and he was known to the instructor as somebody who was a high-level operative. Fascinating that he wouldn't allow this man to introduce himself to the rest of the room of Central Intelligence Agency operatives who had just gone through the process of introducing themselves to everybody else. So just how important was Jeffrey Epstein? How high up the food chain was he? Seems like he was pretty damn high from everything we're seeing here. The bodyguard also claimed that the man teaching the CIA class gave a personalized note inside of a book to Bradley Edwards and directed him to deliver it to Epstein. The bodyguard, Bradley Edwards, then delivers this book to Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell without reading the message on the inside. But while Jeffrey Epstein was in jail for procuring children for prostitution, he sent his bodyguard to the CIA to take a class and get a secret message from some CIA teacher there. Absolutely incredible. Here's another thing which lends some credence to the idea that, yes, in fact, Jeffrey Epstein was high-level intelligence. As if you need any more convincing. So on the very same day that that the FBI opened a child sex trafficking case into Jeffrey Epstein once again in 2018, he ordered half a dozen 55-gallon drums of sulfuric acid and had it delivered to his private island. Now, what are the chances that Jeffrey Epstein would, on the very day they open up a sex trafficking investigation into him, and he orders 55-gallon drums of sulfuric acid, which are appropriate for dissolving human bodies, and he has them sent to the island. It sounds to me like someone inside the federal government tipped Jeffrey Epstein off that day, or maybe he had some type of notification trigger set up within the federal system, like at the FBI or the DOJ. And as soon as that investigation was opened with his name, he was given some type of a warning. Now, of course, he's smart enough. He would know that if they're opening a sex trafficking investigation into him under the Trump administration, this is not going to be like the Bush or the Obama administrations. Donald Trump knows exactly who he is. He's not going to take any chances. So likely, Jeffrey Epstein had things that he needed to dispose of on the island. And don't forget, remember I showed you, he had a hatch opening directly into the ocean from inside his home. So let's say he's got a couple of bodies he needs to get rid of. Chop them up into pieces. You throw them into the sulfuric acid. They melt. You throw enough body pieces in there so that they completely dematerialize. And then you can very easily add something like, I don't know, calcium carbonate to negate the acidic properties. And then you can just pour it slowly into the ocean through that hatch in the floor. Nobody would be the wiser. I've heard people say before Jeffrey Epstein probably was throwing body parts out, but you would have skeletons lining the floor of the ocean. That's too easy for people to come and find, for forensic investigators to come and find later. No, you'd want to melt that stuff. You'd want it to be completely gone. Now, let me also remind you, not long after the FBI opened an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, he had a cement truck that was delivered to his island. Now, this came up in the posts that Jeffrey Epstein was using cement to fill up all of the tunnels on his island. But that was never reported until after Jeffrey Epstein had died. But certainly after the investigation was open, for no reason, he decides, you know what, I'm going to build another pool. That was the original reason that the cement truck was being delivered, is that Jeffrey Epstein wanted a new pool. So he's going to have a cement truck delivered to the island. Now, I only know about the one pool. And as far as I know, that pool was there well before Jeffrey Epstein had been charged, and then, you know, his island got raided again. So I think the only reason that he would have had the cement truck delivered was exactly like Q said, so that he could fill those tunnels up. Perhaps not all of them, because we've already seen the video showing that at least some of those tunnels were still in good shape. I mean, you had to have all of the plumbing and the electricity and all of that stuff still going. But there were likely tunnels leading and doing other things. Perhaps the tunnel that would have existed underneath the temple. That would have been a good one to go ahead and fill. But I just I find it way too coincidental that Jeffrey Epstein had this case opened, and then he ordered the 55-gallon drums of sulfuric acid. You can see the order right here for his LLC, the LSJE LLC in the St. Thomas Virgin Islands. $4,373.17 to Gemini Seawater Systems, wired through SunTrust Bank. Times 6, 55-gallon drums, sulfuric acid with fuel and insurance charge for transport. Materials for conductivity probes, replacement pH, and cable at the reverse osmosis plant. Now, I don't know what the reverse osmosis plant would require, but here you go. Very strange that it would happen on the exact same day. All right, now, I Like Fish says, a portable cement mixer is all that's needed to build a pool. Nobody orders a cement truck to build a pool on an island. Yeah, but you sure as hell would need it if you were going to be filling a bunch of 10-foot tunnels underneath your property. Now, I want to go back to a post that we talked about last week. This is that post from Fortnite where they claimed that the Little St. Jeff 1 player name was a ruse, that it was essentially somebody who had changed their name to Little St. Jeff. They said that a few days ago, an existing Fortnite account owner changed their username from something totally unrelated to Little St. Jeff 1, following the revelation of Little St. Jeff 1 as a name on YouTube. These Fortnite trackers only display your current name, not any prior changes to it. We have no record of the subject's email address referenced in the public document existing in the Epic account system. Since the public document releases, people have created Fortnite accounts with similar-looking email addresses and usernames. Well, here's the thing. Take a look at this community note. Somebody went and did it. They checked and saw how this would work. And they say this explanation does not hold true when reviewing Fortnite.gg 2025 Wrapped, because that would show the username that was tied to the games as they were played in 2025. And the reason this doesn't make sense is because the Little St. Jeff 1 username is the username that was being used when those 2025 games were being played, which also means that Fortnite officials telling us that this Little St. Jeff 1 username is new is not true. So when you go to the links for Little St. Jeff 1 to check out what games they played in 2025, all of them are played by Little St. Jeff 1. So Fortnite completely lied. They say right here, this community note is wrong. Fortnite GG Wrapped shows the account's current name with stats from 2025. This account changed its username a few days ago to Little St. Jeff 1. That's the only one that is visible on Wrapped. Well, we don't have any other way to check it because other people are saying that they changed their names and they went back and looked and it still shows those names that were correct at the time. So I don't know. I don't trust Fortnite, to be honest with you. But here's another good one. So in the files, there was an official announcement of Jeffrey Epstein's death that was written by the Justice Department, by the Southern District of New York. Now, this is an official U.S. DNY or SDNY, United States Attorney's Office of SDNY document. And in the document, they discuss the circumstances leading to the death of Jeffrey Epstein. So then Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman said, earlier this morning, the Manhattan Correctional Center confirmed that Jeffrey Epstein, who faced charges brought by this office of engaging in the sex trafficking of minors, had been found unresponsive in his cell and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Today's events are disturbing, and we are deeply aware of their potential to present yet another hurdle to giving Epstein's victims their day in court. To those brave men and women who have already come forward and to the many others who have yet to do so, let me reiterate that we remain committed to standing for you and our investigation of the conduct charged in the indictment. Well, here's the only problem. This document was dated on Friday, August 9th of 2019. And wouldn't you know it, Jeffrey Epstein died on Saturday, August 10th, 2019. So it's not like they wrote Friday, August 9th, 2019. Like they wrote this and they wrote it a day ahead of time. If this would have been written on the day of, they would have put it for Saturday, August 10th, and it would have been obvious that the date was incorrect. But this is dated for the day before. It was submitted the day before. And hold on, I'm trying to get past this right here. And nobody's got an explanation for this. Oh, did I mention? Because I don't think I did. But they've also admitted in the Epstein files that the noose that was produced, supposedly the noose that killed Jeffrey Epstein, that they've always said was the noose that killed Jeffrey Epstein. I guess it's not the noose that killed Jeffrey Epstein. And they've never actually found it, which is something that totally happens when people kill themselves in prison. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. So it was actually 6:30 in the morning on August 10th when Epstein was discovered. So this document would have been written later in the day, and for some reason, the Southern District of New York had it ready to go the day before, and either they forgot to change the date on it, or they were just so rushed. They had a lot going on. I mean, they had just killed this guy. So, or just removed him from his cell. I don't know. There's a couple of different things that could happen, because we also have this document, which is also from the prison. Take a look at this. This is an interview with someone from the prison, and it was done roughly 2 months after Epstein left, shuffled off this mortal coil. We'll just say that. So this is a continuation of the document. So these people at the prison were with Epstein's body and had secured the scene. Redacted remained with the COs, blank and blank, until personnel from the Office of Chief Medical Examiner arrived to transport Epstein to their facility. Now, this is what does not jive with what we actually saw on the day of. Remember, we had pictures that were released of Jeffrey Epstein's body being wheeled out of the prison and then brought into the ambulance. I just showed some new pictures the other day of them doing CPR on Jeffrey Epstein at the prison. So they say, due to the large news media presence outside the MCC, a male OCME official called and said he would be arriving at the loading dock with a black vehicle. So not with an ambulance, in order to thwart the media. And then redacted used boxes and sheets to create what appeared to be a human body, which was put into the white OCME vehicle, which the press followed, allowing the black vehicle to depart unnoticed with Epstein's body. Are you serious? Like, they are quite literally admitting in some form or fashion that what they put into the ambulance was not Epstein's body, and that Epstein, or Epstein's body, whichever way you want to describe it, left in a black vehicle. Now, this directly lines up with that 4chan post where they said that there was a totally different vehicle that never signed in, came in and just whisked this guy away. So if this is the case, no matter whether this guy was dead or alive, then where did the pictures of the body that we saw come from? Because those pictures were taken by press. There was like press, click, 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 as they were wheeling him out to put him into the ambulance. It just gives more credence to the idea that what we've been shown was absolutely not Jeffrey Epstein. Once again, leading me to believe that it's more likely than ever before that Jeffrey Epstein is alive and well and living perhaps his best life someplace else. All right, now, found this one on Friday, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait all weekend to talk about it, but I did. So in this email from 2018, Jeffrey Epstein is having a conversation with somebody that I believe to be Nadia Marcinko, or Marcinkova. She goes by both names. Okay. So this is December 28th of 2018. He writes her and says, a friend of mine Skyped me because they wanted some advice. She said she was working on a sex trafficking movie. She said she met this really beautiful girl that used to be a sex slave for a guy with a private island. She met this pilot/girl at Burning Man. I asked her if she had ever met Epstein. She said no, she hadn't. And I said, yes, you have. She almost fainted. So let me just spell this out for you. Someone is about to make a movie about Jeffrey Epstein because they met a girl that he had trafficked. They don't realize that the Jeffrey Epstein they know is the same person who was the sex trafficker. And Jeffrey Epstein tells this person while they're on the Skype call. Now, I believe Nadia replies and says, I'm confused. I never talked to her about anything to do with you, but she knows redacted. And Jeffrey says, no, she was telling me that she is doing a movie on sex trafficking and met a sex slave, you. She had no idea the Jeffrey she was talking to, me, was the Jeffrey she was talking about in the movie. She replies and says, I'm so confused. And he says, I'll get more info, no worry. How's the puss? You know, I mean, he's asking about her vagina. So this is the first time, the only time that I've seen Jeffrey Epstein admit to being a sex trafficker in any of these emails. Now, I don't know if this email was present when Dan and Cash saw the files previously, but I think that this is obviously something that should continue to be looked into. I mean, we're going to talk more now about a whole bunch of potential co-conspirators. So Jeffrey Epstein admits to being a sex trafficker right here in this email, and he's talking specifically to someone that he groomed. Now, the reason I think this is Nadia Marcinkova is because Nadia was the pilot girl. She was the one, the blonde, that became a pilot. She is still operating like her own type of, it's a company related to air travel. It does a whole bunch of different things. What, when I said he's talking about her vagina. Okay, Mokanon said, I thought it was California Institute of Art, or could be California Institute of Art, but they go by Cal Art. Cleveland makes sense because I believe Les Wexner is where Ohio is from. Yes, that's why I figured it was the Cleveland Institute of Art. But I guess it could be California Institute of Art as well. I mean, Jeffrey, I think both of them use CIA when they're doing abbreviations of it. But either way, Jeffrey Epstein had a presence in Ohio. Les Wexner, longtime presence in Ohio. So Cleveland Institute of Art made the most sense to me. All right. Now continuing. Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, this goes back to what I was saying at the start of the show. President Trump and the DOJ, Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, they got so much shit from the general public early on. When Todd Blanche moved Ghislaine Maxwell to a cushier prison, when he went and spoke to her. Now, at the time that Todd Blanche went and questioned Ghislaine Maxwell, he said that she was entirely open. She answered every question. She held nothing back. But she also claimed she had no idea who else could have been a co-conspirator. Now, at that time, these files were supposedly missing. The only files that existed were merely everything that we had already seen publicly. So Ghislaine Maxwell thought that she was protected. She attempted at that time to make a deal, and the federal government declined, although they did move her to nicer accommodations. I think that it was an effort to sort of sweeten the pot for her and see if they could get her to tell them anything that she might be willing to divulge. But now here we are several months later, previously after Ghislaine Maxwell had said early on that she would answer questions under oath. Now that all of these files are out, she is refusing to answer questions under oath. That means that Ghislaine Maxwell has not made a deal with the federal government. That means that Ghislaine Maxwell could, in fact, incriminate herself further. So, obviously, she could not be tried for the exact same crimes that she was tried for before, but there are a lot more victims that are being revealed as a result of these files. And as I feel like we have established in the numerous conversations we've had about this subject, I think that there are a lot of crimes that have yet to be established and yet to be prosecuted. So the number of victims expands exponentially every single time we look deeper into these files. Ghislaine Maxwell knows that she could not possibly testify in any setting under oath without being asked questions that would incriminate herself while incriminating other people, because Ghislaine Maxwell was present for all of this. So yes, ultimate point here is that Maxwell has made no deals. Ghislaine Maxwell is pleading the fifth so that she can remain free from any further prosecution, or at least remain free from incriminating herself into getting any further prosecution. So she showed up and she pled the fifth to every single question that was asked of her. Let's go ahead and look at the clip of James Comer discussing this. Oh, come on, where is it? I guess that I have to pull up the tweet. Hold on just a second. All right, while I'm waiting for that for me to find that, let me pull this up. They kicked me out. Okay. All right. They can freeze your accounts, you guys. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your money overnight because banks don't protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing the Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you can get direct ownership of physical gold bars, with each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. Not paper gold, not an IOU, real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That is power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer, and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. Wallet.rumble.com. If you're on Rumble, you can use that QR code or the link in the chat. Okay. So here is James Comer discussing the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell has refused to answer any questions because, of course, she's got something to hide.
As expected, Ghislaine Maxwell took the fifth and refused to answer any questions. This obviously is very disappointing. We had many questions to ask about the crimes she and Epstein committed, as well as questions about potential co-conspirators. We sincerely want to get to the truth of the American people and justice for the survivors. That's what this investigation is about. I want to mention the next steps. We can confirm we have 5 more depositions in the book scheduled for the Epstein investigation. On February 18th, Lex Wexner, who is a financial client of Epstein and I believe the former CEO of Victoria's Secret. February 26th, we have former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. February 27th, former President Bill Clinton. March 11th, Richard Kahn, Epstein's accountant. And March 19th, Darren Endike, Epstein's lawyer. So we will continue to move forward and try to get answers for the American people.
Do you think the Britain's royal family has...
All right, we will hold off on any questions about the royal family because we're going to be talking about them next. But the real question is, who were the other men in the Epstein files? Now, the FBI actually released over the weekend an 87-page document, which once they realized that it was there and people started talking about it, they pulled it down. So you've got these 87 pages, which include pictures of what are likely to be co-conspirators. Now, I'd like to remind everybody what I told you last week. There are individuals in the anonymous community, not anonymous, the FBI-controlled group, but just Anons Online, who are currently going through the process of reverse engineering the attachments whose digital signatures are still on these emails, but the pictures themselves are not always there. They are being reverse engineered so that all of these images and videos can, in fact, be reviewed. Now, that's a dangerous game because, of course, some of them are likely to include illegal material. But in these pictures right here, you've got, a whole bunch of stuff from all over the world, a lot of stuff that's redacted. There are obviously women and I would imagine young girls that are in here. Of course, with the redactions, we can't really see who is who or what is what. But the question that everyone is asking is, why did the FBI release this? And then why did they so quickly take it down? If they had already gone through the process of redacting it and, allegedly protecting the identities of people in here. Like, here's somebody right here. Don't know who this guy is. Can't really tell from the look of it. But as written by the Miami Herald, they were able to get this 21-page presentation from the FBI documents, and they requested information from the FBI about it. Now, once the Miami Herald asked the FBI found it and took it down, as if they did not mean to release it in the first place. So this is going back to July of last year, after the Justice Department officially shut the door on releasing any files at that time. But the FBI began working on drafts of a 21-page presentation of all the evidence the FBI had gathered thus far. And that included a summary of allegations against 11 men. I want to remind you also that there was that famous interview with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino when they said that there were no co-conspirators. Now, there's no evidence that Epstein had sexually assaulted and trafficked these girls and kept a client list of men, but we're talking about millions of documents here. I mean, there's obviously pictures, there's obviously plenty of communications. We've looked at quite a few emails which seem to indicate that he had a lot of very famous and powerful friends who knew exactly what he was up to, and they were asking him for the exact same thing he was getting himself. But the documents that were not previously made public show that the FBI had already compiled their own list of accusations that were made against these prominent men that were based largely on uncorroborated tips and interviews that the DOJ had compiled at least since the 2019 address. Now, among them are a list of names that you probably would imagine. Of course, President Donald Trump. I mean, there are a lot of unconfirmed tips that came in against him. None of those panned out. Donald Trump is not a co-conspirator. However, former President Bill Clinton definitely would be. I'm sure that he will be asked about that when he testifies before the Oversight Committee. Harvey Weinstein, there's another one. Also, private equity investor Leon Black, he's another one. He paid Epstein tens of millions of dollars. Les Wexner, who is also about to come in and testify. Certainly, he would be one as well. Former Chase Manhattan banker Jess Staley. He is featured prominently in these emails. He is definitely one of them as well. So, an unidentified individual in July of last year wrote at the FBI, "Can you write me a sentence or two for the below are the salacious statements made against individuals in the file?" And then the presentation appears to have been compiled by task forces at the FBI and the New York Police Department. Now, remember that communication that we saw between the individuals in Mexico who were talking about the famous Navy SEAL commander, Demo Dick Marcinko, not related to Nadia Marcinko as far as I know, and that police detective who was working at the Child Sex Crimes Task Force in New York City. They were working on this with the FBI. So the list was then arranged into a detailed PowerPoint that was published among millions of pages of these documents that were first released in January. Now, while this list included a presentation about Epstein, not all of the referenced activity is necessarily illegal, definitely creepy, but it's not clear that the men in this presentation were connected explicitly with Epstein's crimes, although it warrants further investigation, I feel. It does give the public an inside look at the investigation that spanned for nearly 2 decades, 3 presidential administrations, and only went somewhere of substance under President Trump's first and second administrations. So you can see here the charges they seem to be investigating Epstein for are child sex trafficking, obstruction of justice. Hold on, I need to go back to that. Obstruction of justice, again, child sex trafficking, and then death investigation, meaning they believe that people died under the watchful hand of Jeffrey Epstein. So a version of the PowerPoint was sent to Kash Patel on August 7th of last year, a month before he told Congress that the agency had no evidence to prosecute other men in connection with Epstein's crimes. That was a pretty tense hearing, if you remember. A lot of people were pressing him on that. A lot of people in the chat were pressing him in on as well. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself? Senator John Kennedy had asked. Himself. Kash replied, "There is no credible information, none. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked 2 other individuals. The information we have, again, is limited." Now, I also want to remind you that this is before the so-called 3 million pages that have just been released were supposedly found in the same broom closet where James Comey and Christopher Wray had been hiding all kinds of stuff previously. But the claims contained in the presentation include things like rape, attending orgies, money laundering, and according to emails and documents that have been released by the DOJ as part of these files, I mean, there's a lot of people that were involved in these things. The PowerPoint has some parallels to another document, also not previously made public. That was that 86-page prosecution memo that was sent to U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman on December 19th, 2019, titled Investigation into Potential Co-Conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. And we can see that right here. Oh my God, they took it down. You shitting me? They took it down. Wow. So the prosecution memo was also published with these DOJ documents, but it appears to have been removed. Lawyers for the men accused in the files, or the men themselves, denied the accusations. Of course they did, which have placed them under public scrutiny. 5 could not be reached for comment, but have already previously denied any wrongdoing. It's unclear the extent to which the FBI investigated any of them. Now, the ones on this page, which is published by the Miami Herald, include President Trump, someone who is redacted, Harvey Weinstein. No. So it's the name of the accused and then the names of the supposed witnesses. So stated Epstein introduced her to Trump, who subsequently forced her head down into his exposed genitalia while she subsequently bit. That person never responded. That's total BS. Another one, remember Epstein introduced her to Trump saying, "This is a good one, huh?" And Trump responded, "Yes." Date range, roughly 1984. That person would have been 14. That so-called tip didn't pan out either. And then you have Harvey Weinstein. There are 3 claims they put in here. Glenn Dubin, who Jeffrey Epstein took his daughter to a daddy-daughter dance, which makes me think that maybe Glenn and Ava Dubin's daughter is actually Jeffrey Epstein's daughter. Then you have Prince Andrew. You got the 3 claims against him. Jess Staley, you've got 1 claim against him. Leon Black, 2 more claims. Les Wexner, Alan Dershowitz, Bill Clinton, Howard Lutnick. And someone claims that Lutnick made his money through Ponzi schemes and money laundering. Lutnick and Epstein were neighbors, and Epstein sold Lutnick a home for $10, which he then sold for millions. It's not exactly accurate. We've already talked about that. William Barr and Leon Black. Barr and Black were allegedly present during abuses. And then numerous anonymous tips brought these in. So they at least they classify it with that. So some appear to be secondhand rumors, like a woman who claims she was invited to an orgy with Bill Clinton. The former president recently, of course, agreed to testify to Congress. I hope they're going to ask him. I will not sit idly by as they use me as a prop in a closed-door kangaroo court by a Republican Party running scared, Bill Clinton wrote on social media. If they want answers, let's stop the games and do this the right way in a public hearing where the American people can see for themselves what this is really about. Of course, the White House and the Department of Justice have denied any credibility to the claims against President Trump. Many of those claims, as I have pointed out previously, were simply tips into the FBI hotline, and nobody ever wanted to follow up on them. Some of the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump, and they were submitted right before the 2020 election. Todd Blanche had said, to be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have already been weaponized against him. And the Justice Department has, to this day, not charged anyone else in connection with Epstein's crimes besides Ghislaine Maxwell. And I guess the FBI has interviewed over 90 victims, according to this PowerPoint. More than 290 tips related to Epstein and others were called into the FBI. Of that number, 52 were anonymous. Following up on those 239 tips, they only made secondary contact with 27 people. So it goes to show you how many of them likely were just being totally fabricated. At least 2 of the men, Les Wexner and Jess Staley, were listed as being referred to state, according to notes on versions of the slide. The document doesn't indicate what that means. Referred to state, I would imagine that means referred to the State Department, which seems to indicate to me that perhaps Wexner and Staley both have additional intelligence ties in the same way that Jeffrey Epstein did. Wexner's attorney conducted a proffer interview with federal prosecutors in 2019. A proffer is a formal, voluntary statement made by a defense attorney to prosecutors outlining what evidence or testimony his or her client can provide, often in exchange for immunity or a plea bargain. The assistant U.S. attorney told Mr. Wexner's legal counsel in 2019 that Wexner was neither a co-conspirator nor a target in any respect, the legal representative for Wexner said. Mr. Wexner cooperated fully by providing background information on Epstein and was never contacted again. But of course, Les Wexner, being the prior CEO of Victoria's Secret and L Brands, he had hired Jeffrey Epstein as a financial advisor, and he also continued to pay Jeffrey Epstein even after he became a sex offender. Jeffrey Epstein also wrote him a very interesting letter seeming to indicate that he had some type of blackmail against him. Jess Staley is the guy I mentioned from Chase, who is accused of getting massage from a woman at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. She said he forced her hands to his crotch and he had rough sex with her. Sounds like a rape. And the lawyer for Jess Staley has not replied to that particular claim. But people who have levied accusation against these men, their names are still redacted. We don't know who they are. The files also detailed interview notes and statements from alleged victims and people claiming to have information. The Herald was unable to locate an interview record or a 302 of a woman making the accusation against Trump because she never actually gave one because she doesn't exist. So what did the DOJ know? Well, the PowerPoint has some parallels to another document also not previously made public, the 86-page prosecution memo brought up earlier. In that prosecution memo, it was produced by federal prosecutors at the SDNY and provides an even more detailed overview of other interviews conducted by the New York State Attorney's Office and the FBI done with victims, witnesses, and people who associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, we're not going to go through it because it's too many pages, but this memo does include statements from 24 women who say that Epstein abused them as minors, 14 who say they were abused as adults, and it also mentions 3 other women, at least 2 of whom were Epstein's assistants, and those would be several of the girls that were given immunity as part of Jeffrey Epstein's deal down in Florida. In many cases, investigators at the Justice Department were able to independently confirm that the victims they interviewed were recruited by Epstein or somebody else working for Epstein. One of the women told prosecutors that Epstein directed her to give massages to 2 men in 2011 or 2012 when she was about 20. She said she was told to give Leon Black a massage and he tried to sexually assault her. She ran out of the room. She then said she was directed to give Jess Staley, the former CEO at Barclays and employee at Chase, who is a longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein. She gave him a massage at the mansion in New York. She told investigators she tried to give him an ordinary massage, but he forced her to touch his genitals and then he raped her. Now, a spokesperson for the FBI declined to answer questions about whether any of these men were investigated, saying the FBI would not comment on open investigations, but they did state that Patel's comments in September were 100% accurate. I don't know about that. It just seems like there's too much stuff going on. I'm going to see if I can get a copy of that prosecution memo. I'd like to read all of it in detail. But in addition to that, I have even more for you. Take a look at this. Someone perhaps may want to be investigated. Our current U.S. Secretary of Navy, John Phelan, this does not indicate illegal activity, but it's certainly interesting. Certainly something that I think should be taken a look at. So in one of Jeffrey Epstein's rooms where he had this like esthetician or dental chair, perhaps, he's got all of these faces of men on the wall. And this was photographed, you know, as part of the release that came out. John Phelan has the same type of faces on the wall, except, I don't know, maybe they all appear to be one man rather than different men. Not exactly certain. John Phelan has some interesting artwork. There is a some slightly pornographic stuff that is in his office as well. But what's more interesting is that John Phelan is on the Epstein flight logs. And he didn't just fly on Epstein's flight. He flew with Jean-Luc Brunel. Jean-Luc Brunel was Jeffrey Epstein's man in France, in Europe. Now, Brunel is also the one who was arrested on sex trafficking charges, just like Epstein and Maxwell, and he was suicided by hanging, the same type of thing that happened to Jeffrey Epstein in prison. He was being arrested for rape and sexual assault of minors specifically. Now, you can see here, there was somebody named Craig Overlander on there, Brian Higgins, John Phelan, Theodore Sarur, Jimmy Kane, Jean-Luc Brunel, Jeffrey Epstein. They flew from London, England to New York at 4:04 p.m. And they flew into JFK. And their pilot was Bill Hammond. And then these other people who are blacked out are more than likely Jeffrey Epstein's harem, okay? The girls that were being abused. So I think that needs to be questioned. I think somebody needs to take a look at that. In addition, we also have what is a picture of Reid Hoffman, looks to be, on Jeffrey Epstein's island. Reid Hoffman with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Reid Hoffman used to be at PayPal with Elon Musk. Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman have been publicly spatting on X. Reid claims that Elon is in the Epstein files, and so therefore he is a child abuser. Elon said, "You went to the island, buddy. So I never went to the island. You're the real child abuser here." Of course, Reid Hoffman also funded E. Jean Carroll's lawsuits against President Trump. He's a major Democrat booster. He also publicly claimed on numerous occasions that he never went to the island. Well, here he is on the island with Jeffrey Epstein and what looks to be maybe one of Jeffrey Epstein's workers right here, because you got the gator right behind him. And perhaps this is somebody who was hanging out for the day. I don't know. But yeah, there we go. Reid Hoffman, there you are on the island. I wonder if he's going to respond to that. I don't think he will. But this statue in the background is breastfeeding a baby, it looks like. Some type of odd fertility statue. That seems on brand for Jeffrey Epstein. We also have another prominent international figure, this time a diplomat from the UAE. Her name is Hind Alawais. She appears in the emails 469 times, and it looks like she was involved in the scheduling of girls. And of course, the word girls denotes younger, not necessarily illegal, but again, we know Jeffrey Epstein's taste. In this email from January of 2012, she emails Epstein and says, "Getting one girl ready is difficult enough. 2 girls you can certainly call a challenge." Now, Jeffrey Epstein writes to her and says, "If you could come closer to 11, I would like more time with you two." And that's when she says, "Getting 2 of us ready is a challenge. We might even be late. Let Susan call me if you are on a tight schedule." Now, she, ironically enough, is now the director of the UAE's Permanent Committee for Human Rights. Human Rights in the UAE. Here he is, Leslie Groff, telling Jeffrey Epstein that Hind Alawais is visiting in December 2011, well after he became a child sex offender. This email right here is from a year later, January 2012. So why is it that these people are always involved in positions that they shouldn't be? If they are traffickers or abusers, they end up in a position where they get power over this subject. I mean, obviously I know the answer to that question. They do that on purpose. Here's another interesting one. Do you guys know who Ashley Banfield is? Ashley Banfield is a reporter on News Nation. And I don't watch her, but I mean, I've seen clips of her going around because News Nation is supposed to be like the I don't know, mainstream media light or something like that. That's where Chris Cuomo is now. Well, Ashley Banfield is in the Epstein files, but she's not just in the Epstein files. She's in the Epstein files because she wanted to bang Jeffrey Epstein. And this is also in 2012 because, well, this is in 2012. This is after Jeffrey Epstein is already a sex offender. So This is Peggy Siegel, the PR woman for Jeffrey Epstein. She writes to Jeffrey and says, I am on an 8:30 flight at the airport now, land 11 a.m. New York, and have a 12:30 lunch for 100 Academy voters for Catherine Bigelow for Zero Dark 30 at the 21 Club. So sorry I cannot go back with you. We had a cocktail party at Wendy and Rupert's for Ang Lee, but his mother suddenly croaked at 1:03. I think croaked is what she meant. So I might have a free night. Sunday, December 9th, Allison will send you the guest list. You can come alone or invite Ashley Banfield, who is lusting for you. I can give you the email or phone, Peg. Now you can see here in the email between Peggy Siegel and Ashley Banfield. Ashley Banfield wrote 2 days before Peggy Siegel writes Jeffrey Epstein. Let's see. Late for a Matt Damon premiere tonight. Won't make the movie. May try for the party. Is that okay? And is your friend Jeffrey still single? Now, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Peggy, send documents to 71st Street. Any amazing girl I should take to the Sunday event, I will leave London Thursday night for New York. Now, there's, I'm sorry, I should have read that one before I read Peggy's response, because Jeffrey's response to invite Ashley Banfield is, I'll bring my own, thanks. So Jeffrey Epstein was not interested in Ashley Banfield. She was obviously far too old for him. But I don't think I've heard her talk about the Epstein files in any respect since they've come out. And I have to wonder, is it because she liked the guy? Because she knew what he was up to? And of course, as a journalist who may be compromised, maybe she can't talk about it. Anyways. All right. Now, this is where we're going to talk about the royals and UK government. So as a result of Keir Starmer being exposed for not caring about Lord Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and for promoting that other woman that I told you about last week who wanted to essentially make it legal for young people, underage people, to be involved in the filming of sexual scenes if they didn't look like they were being traumatized. The British government is falling apart. A bunch of people around Keir Starmer have left. You had like his number 2 leave. You had his assistant leave. And all of these people in the government are putting pressure on him to leave as well. So it looks like very soon we are going to have a change of leadership in the UK, which of course would leave an opening for the Reform Party to come in. And this would likely be the case because a lot of people in the UK are now totally sick of the situation with the repression of free speech and the blatant open door immigration policy. It's not good for the country, and people simply want to be able to live their lives and thrive. Now, with regard to Peter Mandelson, right here, Ghislaine Maxwell writes to Peter Mandelson and says, Pete, what is wrong? I am here for you. Call me. Clinton said he will do what you want at the conference, meaning Bill Clinton. And she says, GX, PS, don't be disgusting. I think she's talking about with Bill Clinton. Like whatever Bill Clinton says he'll do what Peter Mandelson wants him to do, but Ghislaine says don't be disgusting. Peter Mandelson has already said publicly he's gay. So what do you guys think Peter Mandelson wants to do with Bill Clinton? I don't know. But geez, oh, Pete's. These people will literally stick anything. Now, we also have word that the police in the UK are now investigating Prince Andrew. Because much like Peter Mandelson and that other lord who had given confidential, secret information to Jeffrey Epstein, it would appear that while Andrew was working in his position inside the UK government, he also broke the Official Secrets Act and shared confidential trade information with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this would be the best thing for the British royal family if they want to get rid of Prince Andrew for good. They've basically already kicked him out of the family. They've kicked him out of his royal residence. And if he is found to have violated the Official Secrets Act, then that would put him into prison for the rest of his life. Let me also remind you, the judicial system is far different in the UK. They don't have the same standard of evidence that we have here. So what they're saying is that the police in the UK have confirmed the assessment of grave allegations that Andrew shared this confidential trade file with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew leaked envoy docs to Epstein as calls grow for him to face a criminal probe. The disgraced royal, who served as the UK's special representative for international trade and investment between 2001 and 2011, allegedly sent Epstein reports about trips to Vietnam and Singapore in 2010, according to documents in the millions of files that were just released. Vietnam and Singapore are those countries that are known for sex trafficking, where you can go and do terrible things with people if you pay the right money. Trade envoys must keep details about trips confidential, even when they are no longer in that role under the Official Secrets Act. It's the Thames Valley Police, which serves this area, which include the ex-royal's former home in Windsor, and they are looking at Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as an anti-monarchy campaigner, reported him for suspected misconduct in public office and breaches of Britain's Official Secrets Act. Head of a British Republican pressure group advocating for abolishing the monarchy, Graham Smith is the one who reported this to the police. Smith compared the allegations against Andrew to those of former UK Ambassador Peter Mandelson, who is also accused of leaking government documents to Epstein in a growing scandal. Everyone appears to be dirty. Nobody is coming out of this clean. Now, this is not news to us, but many people are starting to realize that when these people are talking about pizza, they're not really talking about pizza. There's a lot of references, hundreds upon hundreds of references to pizza. And this is obviously very, very familiar if you were following Pizzagate back before the 2016 election. You will know that when people like these are talking about pizza, they're not talking about pizza, even if they're talking about a pizza restaurant. Now, one of the things that I showed you last week is that they were talking multiple times about pizza and grape soda. The same exact reference multiple times in multiple places among multiple people, as if that specific use of phrase means something different. I mean, I've never said to a fellow adult in my life, let's go out for pizza and grape soda. Grape soda could easily be something that kids love to drink. Kids also love pizza. CP, child pornography, that is why they call it CP. CP also stands for cheese pizza. That is well established as a result of a declassified FBI document detailing the secret language of pedophiles that's been out for years, even before Pizzagate broke. And in addition to pizza, people have also discovered that there are other strange food items that are being talked about. But before I show you those strange food items, take a look at this. This is an email getting back to the idea that there was no evidence of people breaking the law. Here is an email from a redacted individual to Jeffrey Epstein where the subject is redacted, but it's a picture. And it's only a picture. And the only thing written in the email is age 10. Wow. Does anybody have any doubt what that picture would likely entail? Now, Milo had shared this and said, what did you do about this while you were deputy director, Dan Bongino? Dan Bongino and Milo were going at each other all weekend. And Milo, at the end of the weekend, seemed to suggest that Dan Bongino didn't leave the FBI, that he had actually been fired. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm saying that is an inflammatory claim right there. And if Milo is going to make a claim like that, he needs to come forward with some measure of proof, because that in itself, in my opinion, would be defamatory. Now, what other items of food are they talking about in these emails? Well, in this particular email, Jeffrey and another individual are talking about frozen white tuna. So Jeffrey writes to this redacted individual and says, how do we deal with the frozen white tuna? And this individual replies, jerky will be with me when I get to ISJ. I can come tomorrow and take care of white tuna if you'd like. I'm due back in NYC by this evening. Well, that's an odd thing to say. It's a very odd thing to say. I mean, let's just say you're a rich person. I mean, you know, tuna can be expensive, especially if it's like sushi grade tuna. If you've got tuna and it's already frozen, how do you deal with it? Well, I mean, you could cut some of it off and then defrost it and then use it for cooking. But how do we deal with it? That sounds like a problem. That doesn't sound like a food item. And then in the response, they mention that jerky will be with me. Jerky will be with me. That's another food item. And it's also a really strange way to mention that food item. And then I can take care of the white tuna if you'd like. So I wonder who this individual is. Well, I think I know who this individual is because there are more conversations about jerky specifically in relation to a cook that appears to be very close with Jeffrey Epstein. His name is Francis. Now take a look at this email from another redacted individual to Jeffrey Epstein. Francis has time to come tomorrow to show me how to make it. Jerky class, anyone? He will also bring you a taste of his new jerky recipe from the restaurant. And he sends a warm hello. Now, so far, it could just be jerky. But then they lead with this. He is working at a restaurant called Cannibal and Cooks. Wait for it, beef jerky and steak. He has time at 3 p.m. tomorrow if that is okay with you. Wow. Cannibal and Cooks. That's an interesting name for a restaurant. You guys probably remember the dig from years ago on that cannibal restaurant in Los Angeles that was supposed to be a joke. I mean, the website certainly didn't have real people on it. Cannibal and Cooks. Is there a restaurant called Cannibal and Cooks? Well, not that I can find. However, the Cannibal Club, that restaurant in LA, that website is still online. That means even though the website was built in like 2000, it looks like, the website is still there. So somebody is paying for this. Now, I'm not saying that this is the restaurant that's being referenced here, but they're certainly talking about eating people. And I think that jerky refers to eating people as well. Because here's another strange email with a bunch of redactions. Someone writes and says, got something specific in mind, or will a new release of custom compilations do the trick? Now, they've talked about videos which appear to be about torture or, unsavory things before. Jeffrey responds and says, I always enjoy any form of release. Rarely have I received a truly customized one, and a compilation of same would be too much to even think about. That person replies and says, it will be ready on Tuesday. And what would you want for your birthday? Jeffrey replies, I only want live. I only want live. Well, what's the opposite of live is dead. Live, I think, are probably humans, children, women, variety of different things. Live to abuse, dead perhaps to eat. The individual responds and says, you know the line about scientists treating their bodies only as a way of transport for their heads. With you, the more complicated question is, which head is it transporting, either upper or lower head? I don't have anything live in your style. You won't need too much help with this quick release compilation. So it sounds like the video that he is talking about making a compilation. Certainly it's pornographic material, legal or illegal. I think, that is subject to interpretation. But Jeffrey likes them young. This person doesn't have any live young girls, so he doesn't have one of them that he can deliver. But again, we have the seeming indication that a dead child could also be ordered. Continuing, there's even more. This isn't even all of it. Most of it I didn't even talk about. I'm not going to talk about. This one is really disturbing. Jeffrey Epstein is having an email exchange with someone, and he is making fun of what appears to be a child who is praying to Jesus. He writes someone in 2011 and says, blank said she felt God's presence next to her when she was in bed. She knows that Jesus watches over her and he helped save her life. Whoops. Now, when RFK Jr.'s wife was hanged, he said, whoops. When somebody died, he said, whoops. So this is clearly like a way that Jeffrey Epstein talks about things, making fun of whomever it is that is suffering. But this is really disgusting. The person replies to Jeffrey Epstein and says, of course, the "Oh, Jesus, I'm coming" trick. Now, obviously, the reason this girl would be in Jeffrey's bed is because he's an abuser. And he's talking about this girl crying out to Jesus as she's being abused. Absolutely disgusting. Completely unforgivable. Surter says, people jerky to stave off the kuru. No, the people jerky wouldn't stop you. Once you get kuru, that's it. It's a progressive disease. Eating more people is not going to stop you from progressing with the disease. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. Now, another thing that seemed to be written off by the FBI, but has obviously been totally confirmed in a very spectacular way by this latest release, is that, yes, Jeffrey Epstein definitely did have his properties wired to record everybody who was coming in. He was a blackmail master. So Maxwell was lying when she was questioned by the DOJ several months back when they first went and asked her for her help. She was totally forthcoming in a way that allowed her to lie about the things that mattered. And in this most recent release, we've got pictures of Jeffrey with two young women who appear to be wearing the same nightie, and an admission that Jeffrey Epstein's homes were top to bottom covered with cameras. This picture had come out as part of the release, and you can see there's a camera hidden right up there in the upper right-hand corner, directly above the bed. And then, of course, this photograph was released by the FBI when they raided his Manhattan home. You can see that there is the name of a woman, Selena, AV shoot, audio video shoot number 2. Then another one over here looks to be Selena 2, AV photos. And then there are, literally dozens of additional CDs and DVDs. This was Jeffrey Epstein's security room. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 monitors, which, of course, would be watching all of the cameras in his house. People are acting like this information hasn't come out yet, but it has. I mean, we knew about this early on, but, of course, now people are paying attention. Good for you. I'm glad that you've woken up. This, however, is definitely new. This was in the Epstein files, and it appears to be one of Jeffrey Epstein's assistants writing to him about a hidden camera. Now, you can tell from the quality of this footage and the fact that it's in black and white, and also the content of the message. Are you okay with this layout? Bed is to the rear of the room with sofa in front. Note, if you are sitting up in bed, you can still see the entire screen. Please advise. So this appears to be a hidden camera. Now, that Telegraph article talks about the fact that cameras were found hidden in Kleenex boxes and a number of other hidden areas. So this would likely be one such camera that would be hidden away someplace where whomever it is that is being brought in here to be honeypotted or blackmailed would have no idea that that's what was about to happen. Now, something else very interesting that came out over the weekend is that there is a Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, Jeffrey Epstein connection. Ted Kaczynski, of course, the Unabomber, believed and wrote a manifesto about the fact that humanity was destroying itself through the implementation of technology, that technology was taking us further from nature, that we were destroying nature as a result of the adoption of this technology. And Ted Kaczynski sent bombs to people in science and technology. There were a number of professors and scientists working at research universities that received bombs. One such individual who received a bomb was another individual with the last name Epstein, no relation to Jeffrey Epstein, but also a person who was very close to Jeffrey Epstein, not the Charles Epstein, but oh shit, what is this guy's name? There we go, David Gelernter. David Gelernter. Now, David Gelernter is prominently featured in the Epstein emails, and he and a number of people actually who were, in the same circles, were very close with Jeffrey Epstein and remained close with Jeffrey Epstein even after Epstein became a sex offender, because, of course, Epstein was still pumping monies into these universities. Gelernter lost an eye, the hearing in one ear, and the portion of his right hand. So I just thought it was interesting because not only was Ted Kaczynski trying to stop Skynet, but he was also trying to take down the satanic pedo cabal that was Jeffrey Epstein's network without even realizing it. So I guess you can say at the end of the day that they're all the same thing, because they are. As I have said before, these are all different arms of the same octopus, all of it. All right. Now, you know what? This is just evidence of the anons that I mentioned earlier in the show that are reassembling the extracts, the attachments to these emails that did not come through, like the pictures, documents, and stuff. This is one of them. So you can see here what they've done is they have taken the metadata from the emails, which is still attached. Using that metadata, they can go and they can retroactively recreate the actual document that would have been attached to that email. Of course, perhaps the formatting is not going to be exactly the same, but we can see here this attachment, which was a PDF, was recreated, and it is a hotel receipt. It's an American Express receipt confirming flight arrangements for one of Jeffrey Epstein's harem, Svetlana Pozdeva, from New York to Paris. Now, this person has previously been identified as an associate of Jeffrey Epstein, so she's not being doxxed here or anything like that. This information is already out there. She's a known Epstein associate. But you can see here, they've been able to successfully replicate this document, and it came from this email right here, where all they do is they include the flight information, but they don't have the information for the travel agency or the fact that it was American Express or anything. And they even have the amount, the $33.15 and 20 cents, fully refundable, and it's reflected here in this document. This is pretty crazy. It is a technique that is far beyond my level of intelligence, but I think that it's amazing, and I look forward to see what else they're able to successfully pull out of these emails. And with that, I will leave you. Thank you very much for being here, you guys. Thank you to everybody who has hit the like button. If you have not hit the like button yet, or the thumbs up, or the red pill, I would ask that you please consider doing so. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I didn't miss anything on Cash App or anywhere else, because I don't think I did. Lorraine, this is from Friday. Lorraine said, taken down the temple. Thank you for that, Lorraine. I appreciate you. And nothing else over here. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. And then we are done. All right. So if you want, you can join me tonight on Badlands Media at 10:30 for Baseless Conspiracies. If not, that's not your thing. Join me again tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Please hit that like button. Please check out the other sponsors of the program in the description below. Good luck, God bless, and I will see you on the next one.